environment. So we've talked a lot about why we work for companies or why we leave companies. For a millennial, it's all about your work environment. I put out a poll on my Facebook and I said, would you rather be in the right environment for a lower salary or have a higher salary and maybe not be in the right environment? 100% of millennial respondents said right environment over higher salary. So I think, we really value that. And if this is the right environment and you're recruiting employees like you always have been, seeking the caliber that you always have been of the people you want in your workplace, you can find that in the millennial generation.
Great response. Because my question was, what factors, both of you, Jenny and Megan, would make you leave a company for a job?
Yeah, I mean, the work environment is huge, and I guess just to break down what is work environment beyond just my nice, cool workspace, having a manager who cares, having a manager, like Dan said, who is authentic, who's direct, who wants to have those tough conversations and the positive feedback conversations with me, that's very important because as much as we want to make a difference and take the world by storm, I think in general we want to learn too, and we want great leaders that we can learn from, that we can respect, that we can trust. That's a huge part when I think of work environment is who am I going to learn from, who's setting the example for me. So I guess just pinpointing leadership is really important.
Yeah, I definitely think leadership is very important, and we want someone, like I said before, who leads by example. I think the other part of that is flexibility. I think we really value that in a company, not flexibility in the sense that I like to sleep in until 10 in the morning and not want to come to work at 8, not in that sense. But flexibility in the sense that if I coach a soccer team on Wednesday afternoons and I have to leave at 4:30, maybe we talk about how I, can adjust my schedule to fit that in. Or, the older millennial generation who's starting to have families. I think FaceTime should not be a factor, or that's what we think as millennials. We just want you to realize that as long as it doesn't impact our results, we're still getting our work done. We want to kind of be able to work in a flexible schedule that allows us to do other things. And we talked a little bit about work-life balance, and I think that really plays a strong factor.
Wow, that support is a comment that a client made to me. A SIG level executive said to me, it takes some getting used to. Said, I don't doubt the work ethic is thumbs up. Thumbs up work ethic. However, it takes some getting used to how the work is done. And it speaks to what you're talking about.
Right, and as long as it doesn't impact the results, as long as the results are still there.
Absolutely. Was there a comment?
Yeah, what Megan's saying is so really interesting and at the core of, I think, where the gap is growing. So a lot of the dialogue that we're having, which I think we probably all have with each other, different conferences in the office, is about the things that we can observe. So there, if I had more time, if a manager could give more feedback and all the skills I think that all employees really want, we all should get better at doing. But where I'm finding the gap is getting really large and that a lot of organizations aren't addressing it because it's the unspoken mindsets that we're not even aware of ourselves. So the example that Megan gave is one that we hear a lot. We found there's actually 7 specific mindset gaps that are happening, but they're not ones that are articulated. They're ones that I might see because of the behavior that either the manager or the millennial may have because of something they believe. So for example, work-life balance. If a millennial, or any employee for that matter, has a belief that FaceTime is not a result or not is not a driver of the result, but the manager has a belief they may not be aware of that FaceTime is indeed part of the job, what we're finding is that the millennial is then coming and asking, hey, I have soccer practice at 4 and I'm going to work on Sunday. And the manager, maybe not in that moment, is saying, it's not so much what she's asking, but why would she even ask me that? Doesn't she see we're working? So we found that unspoken dialogue isn't happening for that, for promotion. So we study younger employees. We find that many are more apt to ask for opportunity or promotion at a certain point. It could be 6 months, a year, whatever it is for that individual. And the very act of asking before a manager believes they're really ready, just that act is seen as entitled sometimes. But we're not finding that managers are that skilled at having the dialogue about the mindset. So instead they're saying you're entitled, or my employees are entitled, they want something for nothing, they have bad work ethic. And I think that's where I think this particular generation gap is different from others, because these conversations aren't happening and they're very distinct beliefs. Influencing is another one that we're finding. So a younger worker may have a belief that I want to contribute day one, right? If I'm spending my time here, I should be able to talk directly to the CEO. So we have lots of stories of managers complaining that their new employee emailed, an executive with an idea. Now, is that a bad thing? Probably not, but if there is a belief around, they have some nerve emailing my boss, I didn't give them permission, but that conversation isn't happening. So I think it's these little nuances of belief systems that we really have to develop people to, above and beyond just the skill of how to deliver them.
Question? Yes.
We brought up the issue of entitlement. So millennials have a reputation, true or not, that they've been pampered and grown in a very affluent generation in our times. And so they carry that raising of their family life into the workforce and have certain entitlements and expected to be pampered just like they were at home. Is that true? Is that what you're commenting on?
Well, I'll try to ask. It's interpreting it. I don't think that's true 100% now, but.
Sure, yeah. So
I knew it would come up though.
I think there is truth to that. Definitely. I mean, I'm a millennial, but I read articles about millennials all the time. What are they saying? I just want to know, and obviously, I think as someone has pointed out, there's a huge range of ages, and it's not necessarily age, it's mindset. And so I'm on the older end of the millennial generation. I notice things about kind of my peers that are different than some of the younger ones. But even just a week or two ago, I was reading an article talking about career development and entitlement and how millennials want to move fast, they want them right away, when really, it takes hard work to grow your career, which is true. I identified with some of the entitlement that they were talking about. I thought, wow, that kind of is me at times. I expect things to happen sooner because I'm putting in all of this
watching the loyalty that companies had to employees go away. So you have to wonder too that they're walking in not expecting a company to keep them for 10 or 20 years with pensions and all these benefits. So they are coming in as a free agent in a sense, and saying, I've got debt, I'm going to have to ask for what I need because no one else could give that to me. So again, and then you're the manager translating these behaviors of the asking as, hey, I had a worker 10 years before I got that. So you can see how that conflict can happen.
Yeah, I think, sorry.
So I was just going to say, from the HR standpoint, we definitely see it as competition of offers. We have a candidate that we're very interested in, and Amazon gives them an offer, and it's twice what we're offering. So what are we going to do in that case? We're not going to offer twice because, as you know, that starts to just kind of erode the whole structure of philosophy and fairness and et cetera. But what we do is try to play up the environment. We, by design, are not the highest paying company in town. That is the point. Our philosophy is to pay fairly, pay competitively, but we do not want to lure people for salary because that's not a very lasting reason to be someplace, right? So we play the environment and the culture and the opportunity to influence things. Not being a millennial, I left 2 companies before I came to Viasat because I had this epiphany one day in someone's office where I thought, I am never going to be able to influence things here the way I want to. And coming to Viasat, we're not as giant as Sony or Amazon, and so you still do that. I do have that opportunity to influence, and it's pretty cool to walk out of a meeting with someone who's been there less than a year, maybe a year or 2 out of college, and say, wow, just like that, the decision was made just like that. Do we need to talk to anyone else? No. It's done. We, as this team, just made that decision. Huh. This is pretty cool. So that's kind of our experience with it and how we try to deal with it.
There was a question way in the back.
Have a unique experience of managing and training the population as well as actually also being in school with them as students. And so what I found helpful is to divide the group into 2 categories, pre-depression and post-depression.
We're talking recession
Well,
or depression?
well, in their language, I have found
Interesting.
they categorize themselves thusly. So when you're talking about these people that are in their early 20s up to like 25, 26-ish, let's say, post-depression, versus the millennials that are mid-20s, let's say, to mid-30s, then these are 2 very different populations in their own even perspective. And so some of these challenges that we've been discussing, I think apply more to the slightly older group that have already worked, before the depression, and are a little bit more similar to the Xers and the Y generation. Whereas these brand new millennials, they are so thrilled to just, oh my God, get a job finally, to stop being an embarrassment despite their many years of education to their poor parents, to potentially have some chance to someday perhaps move out of their house, that they are actually, quite easy to manage. And they will just do, oh my God, anything you want. Just please, whatever culture you're having at the time, I am just more than thrilled. Fit right in. What else would you like me to do? Whereas some of these entitlement challenges and some of these different communication patterns, I think, are more applicable to this other, slightly older group of millennials, in my experience, and dealing with them directly.
What do you think about that?
I haven't broken it apart like that because each of the kids, each of them Gen Y or millennials, they don't like, by the way, they don't like to be called kids. The good news is when you're direct and authentic with them, they're the same way back. So don't call me a kid, right? I'm an adult. Exactly. So, but some of the millennial generation, it just really depends on who you're talking about specifically. I think back to Christine's point about a belief system, right? I think the focus, if we teach them that what is respected in the workplace is to take personal accountability for how you want it, yes, the culture, all those things are important, but if you take personal responsibility and accountability for that, you attract to your environment, like Maya said. You make the right decisions. You're happier in your choices. You're more balanced as those things. And then we as managers also have to take personal accountability to figure out and get to know each and every individual, because the millennials you talked about are different probably, even among, you can't categorize them, and we see that the group here is different on what's in. But the thing is what are you going to do? Just like when diversity was a big issue and race, now age is kind of the new diversity, if you will. If you really want to create innovation, you have to get in there and understand people and create teams that can communicate with each other to succeed. So that's kind of it.
Question right back there.
It's actually a two-part question. One, this has been great. So first, what tools or communication methods are you rolling out to managers to help them better manage these people? And then the same thing, what tools or communication methods are you using to track the engagement? How is it really taking effect or engaging these folks before they bolt after 13 months?
Do you have more comment on that?
Yeah, so we just surveyed, mentioned that. That's one of the ways that we check and engage. We launched a new social media tool a year ago. It's internal that has enabled us to connect with our different locations, with our different audiences on topics that are directly related to work and very far from work. Who's doing such and such race next weekend? Does anyone have a good IPA recipe, or and everything in between? Those are a couple of examples that come to mind. And another one is a coaching program that we do internally that, as Dan mentioned, really relies heavily on the Socratic method, asking questions. So you're not just giving advice and just telling someone what to do. You're helping them discover that on their own. And I think that's a powerful method to coach and to teach your management so that they can pass that on and really make your millennials and others feel a lot more empowered.
I love that question because we've been talking about the behavioral elements of being a better manager, and these are all very important. But the gap was getting so big with the mindset piece that almost every client that we work in, we have our own feedback tool. It's a 360 tool designed for a younger worker, and it actually takes. We found 7 mindset gaps, and I think back to Dan's point, I love how you articulated it about taking accountability. It's not so much right or wrong. If you do this, is it right? If you need a promotion sooner or ask for money, is it right or wrong? It's more around, is the dialogue happening around what success, what behaviors are rewarded with the type of success that any individual wants, regardless of their age. So we took these 7 mindsets and said, what are the behaviors that come with them on the company side and the younger worker side, and put it on the web. And it's not something the company owns, but any millennial, any company can use it, or millennial, where they simply say, I want to get feedback. And instead of just going to the manager saying, I'd like some feedback, you know how that goes. You're doing a great job, or you're not doing a great job. They can actually get feedback on the very things that the companies are struggling with giving them feedback on, that the millennial can own that feedback. It's personal to them. And then the manager, it takes a little bit of heat off the manager having to your point around time. If someone's in your office every day, to at least start the dialogue with a framework that's not just out in the universe.
I love your question too, because it's about what are the metrics, right? We're at work. We're dealing with money. We're not there for our pleasure, although we derive many pleasures from being there. We want to know what the metrics are, and we want to know how important they are. And you have to measure them by the surveys, whether you're on the engineering team or whether you're on the sales team or the marketing team. It's much easier to measure what happened with sales. Did we get more volume? Was there more revenue? All those metrics come into play. But you also have to, as the CEO or HR or anyone who's in management, have your pulse on what the culture's doing, like Melinda says, and what does it actually feel like to work at, and how much more turnover are you getting, and how many more complaints are you getting in your office, right? And when you asked about specific tools to open all those things up to get to those results, they're all EQ-based relationship things, which are based on communication, Socratic method of question, we don't overwhelm anyone, this is too complicated, you know?
Yes.
So I come from the tail end of the millennial timeframe too, and what's interesting about this conversation is I legitimately left the workforce at 26 and started my own business because I wanted nothing to do with this conversation, to be honest. And the one thing I'm finding as the underlying factor in all of this is I left because I felt like my value wasn't being recognized at my job. And for everything that Megan and Jenny are saying, it all comes down to that, where it's, we are college educated, we spent a lot of money and we're still paying off those student loans. We have the experience and you hired us obviously for something. So recognize the value we're bringing to the table, and once you do that, we're there to work. I mean, regardless of our reason, whether we're there because we have to, we still want that paycheck to go do whatever it is we do on the weekend, but being judged for that or being just questioned because we're 20 years or 10 years younger than our counterparts makes us feel less valued and therefore makes us combative towards that work environment that we're in. So I think in everything everyone said, it's just recognizing value in what we're bringing to the table.
So actually, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Because I love the fact that you're an entrepreneur, that's awesome, especially in this environment. Kudos to you, congratulations, A plus. When we look at statistics of millennials and read all these research reports, if you ask them if they want to own their business, 80% of them will say, I want to own my own business and become an entrepreneur one day, and 38% of them, I think the statistic is, have some type of business on the side. So I'm wondering how that impacts a big company like yours and how you deal with the workforce relative to that factor.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I found just anecdotally that we do have several employees that have side businesses or employees that leave us to pursue their side business to grow into a full-time business. From a very tactical standpoint, we handle the non-compete agreements. So whatever they're working on can be in competition with ISAC. But we have a lot of educational reimbursement and other educational programs to continue developing our employees through the life cycle that are with us. So we want people to continue to learn and grow, and through that process, you're probably going to have other interests that develop. We hope that those interests are geared for something we're doing, but we can't guarantee in every case that they are. And if they don't, then wish them well in their other endeavors.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about Generation Z. So when I think about, we have a high school intern who think maybe in 4 or 5 years might come work for our company. What do we know about that generation? How are they different from millennials, or research prepared for that?
What was the question? I heard
Yeah, I think
Generation
it's
Z and
It's a great
It's
question.
a great
We're
question.
talking about Generation Z.
Yeah.
So this is the generation that is now in high school. But think about this question. This is interesting because if we're looking at a shortage of knowledge workers, STEM talent, right? As employers, you're stepping way back into that potential applicant population. You're going out at a high school level, even at a level that may be middle school or even at a grade school level to get students interested in STEM. So your question was around that specific generation.
I think the jury's out. I have me one of those at home too. So, and I think the jury's out, and I look at his older brother, there's 9 years between them, and I say, how are they different? How was I a different parent based on the economy, based on who I was in terms of what my age was when I was that parent, and how he's learning and what technology is for him, which is even different than it was for his brother, who's 9 years older. I don't know the answer to that question yet. I mean,
Yeah, I just actually attended it was a generational marketing conference, and I have an HR background. I used to lead talent development for lot of individuality, so all the trends in product around being able to customize your own shoe or customize your own jewelry, or customize whatever product you're buying, your phone, your technology, that was a trend they were selling. So like Tory Burch, for example, had some products coming out that they were actually targeting for younger buyers. Now, I know when I was that age, I couldn't afford Tory Burch, so I was buying it. But it literally was a handbag where you have this certain pen where you can create your own design on your handbag. So those are only two trends that I took from it, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And it goes back to what you were talking about, Megan, with customizing the employment experience for the individual.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, your question.
How do you, like a lot of times I hear people overgeneralize any generation really, but especially millennials. And I spent 4 years working in higher education and student leadership development, and I felt that one thing that Generation X struggled with was differentiating between a life stage and a generational characteristic, because life stages are things that everyone does at this age, and generational characteristics are going to continue to affect their decision-making and their values. So from an HR standpoint, how are you all differentiating? Because a lot of times I hear people say, oh, millennials, they do this, and I'm like, no, all 21-year-olds do that.
You know, I've never, I probably should have done this on this panel, but I've never started a conversation or walked into a meeting and thought to myself, okay, I'm meeting with a Gen Xer here, so I should do X. Or I'm meeting with a baby boomer here, so I should do Y. I just try to relate with the person that I'm sitting across from, and I think that everyone on our team approaches it the same way. And clearly, we've talked about some unique characteristics that some millennials possess, but I don't know how else to answer that question. I haven't, from a generational standpoint, thought, I need to do. I just think that there are sound practices that you use regardless of generation. So setting expectations, providing feedback, being supportive, caring about the person. I think that those are just sound practices regardless of who you're working with. And that's kind of how we operate.
And I would agree with that. I would say to your question around, what is the generational piece versus the maybe unique factor, I would just use the data. So the data does very, very blatantly tells us that today's 20-something-ish population that is in our workforce will leave an organization much sooner voluntarily than generations before. Now, we could argue why. There's probably lots of discussion. They do have higher student loan debt, the record rate of student loan debt than prior generations. So in community, that's one of this point, is the survey way more important. Not that it's not important to others, but seems to be more of a driver. And then balance, being able to, because of technology, they can produce, we all can produce results at different times of the day. So balance looks very differently, I think, for the world. We're struggling with that. I think if you take that data, and as an organization, you have to say, then how do we respond to the world and the individuals in it whose lives have changed? And an example I think you use, one of our clients is known for their great medical benefits, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, if you have a family of 5, you really are, you attract some very, very great talent. But if you're 25 and you have $80,000 of student loan debt, that isn't going to attract these people. So just using a data point, what if you offered to spend that money in 2 ways? If you either take this great family medical package, or we'll pay down your student loan debt if you stay past that 18-month mark, and we'll start giving you chunks of $10,000 every whatever year or so. So I think it's just a matter of using data to say what is important to this group of people and to give them options that they can customize to their own life.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment, Megan?
Well, I was just going to say, that's my favorite comment question of the night. He really just spoke about what I've been repeating in my mind over and over throughout this discussion, is that I see this more of a maturity discussion than a Gen Y discussion. And as one of the audience members pointed out, how there's a big gap between the 34-year-olds and the 20-year-olds. It's because, like Dan talked about, you just have to teach these people how to be in the workplace. And really, this is more of a question, especially with the entitlement thing, I think, about maturity than just about people learning.
difficult time with work, with that younger person and the younger group. How is she able, her thing is, how am I going to be managed by this person? Because she's always up with her headphones on, and they have cubicles with no walls, but instead of having to talk to me, they're sending me emails, and it's like, go right over here, why don't you just come talk to me? Because she's still of the generation where you would talk one-on-one, and, that may be a possibility for you guys to be working, with me, for you, and how is that being addressed, as far as HR? How do you train them to manage, maybe older people? How's that? What would you tell my friend? What would be the thing to tell her? How to make, what is she going to do? What should she do?
So, okay, comment to your friends and then comment to your manager. Comment to your friends would be that good managers can come in all shapes and sizes and ages, and
And by the way, they're not providing any training to those people to manage.
okay.
So it's like,
Well, the other comment to the new supervisor would have been, these are sound practices when it comes to leading others. So I think regardless of demographic or age, we need to equip someone with the skills to lead others in a way that's going to be appropriate for where they are in their development.
I would say, just to your friend, ask for what you want. Take accountability. If you want to be managed a certain way and it's hard for you to talk to someone who has their headphones on, tell them that. Right? Tell them that and ask them if that's okay with them and what you could do to resolve the issue. I mean, we I think it was Jenny saying, going to my boss and asking for feedback. Or, you have to take accountability for being a certain part of the equation. Doesn't matter what age the person is.
And I'm actually coaching an individual right now, just, I don't want to say for fun, but just someone I know who's going through that, is really frustrated with this situation, and they're afraid, and I said the same thing, just ask her what you want, just like you would coach the younger worker to do so. She's fearful because she feels like when she asks for that, she's going to be perceived as the older worker, and maybe this is the first case. But what I had mentioned to her was maybe there was a way she could earn credibility by helping this younger manager by saying she could take on some mentoring of some of the people this manager's frustrated with on the team, because she's got some good knowledge and experience, and so we're working through that. I don't have results right now for you, but I think just having her say, kind of go with the flow and let go a little bit too, because it's like anything. We're often initially resistant to something that's unknown to us. We all do that. It's just how long do we stay in that stage of resistance, and there might be something this new manager is doing that could add more value to her competency-wise or even balance-wise. We're used to working a certain way. I found that there's a lot of things millennials are asking for in the workforce that are ruffling some feathers, but if you really sit back and think about them, they're things that we all probably want, just didn't think it was okay to ask for. But they're sort of opening the door for us to ask for more time off and balance and flexibility, so maybe we should sort of take it, capitalize on that part of it.
I think that's also a really interesting kind of next step for how this discussion will evolve, because we know it will end. But I think as a millennial, I would be a lot more open to that discussion and receiving a kind of training like that, because it would directly impact my results and how I am working in the company and what I'm doing in the company and how it affects everyone, including my position. So I think millennials might be a lot more receptive to a discussion like that rather than one about, kind of what we've been talking about today.
Question in
with cultural differences, there's going to be the same types of desires and standards.
See, question.
Yeah, I've got a question. I guess there's a lot of HR people, so it's a panel as well as for the audience. So I'm curious to see what everyone's seen as far as a unique retention and attraction strategies for millennials. You mentioned the college tuition reimbursement. I thought that was brilliant. I've seen some companies go with that, so I was just kind of curious to see what else was out there.
How about advice?
I'd say in terms of retention, showing people that regardless of how much experience you have, there are going to be opportunities to do great work on really cool, cutting-edge stuff. So that's one of the best strategies we have in our pocket.
I recommend to companies to look at their turnover, voluntary turnover rate, and most companies are telling me it is within age range. It seems to be more frequent. And I advise them to implement, they're going to spend money in training and development to make sure it's really good training that's not something that you can find, Wikipedia or a video or something that truly is, really good feedback, coaching type of training, and to target that at certain points in time in the career of their millennial workforce, because it is a good retention. And also, don't have it be a program that's a drop in the bucket, have it be a process that they go through that involves mentoring. And I'm not that I don't like mentoring, one-on-one mentoring, I think it's great, but companies can't afford to give every employee a mentor. But we're seeing the concept of mentor circles work really well, where an outside company might get you started, but then you're training your older millennials, your millennial managers, to lead very specific career-guided discussions where people can come in a safe place and get, but it's scheduled over time, and it definitely keeps the group often past that danger point where they may go somewhere else, and then they grow from that, and then they become advocates for you.
Yeah, we see the same exact thing, which is, it's about engagement. So it's about the culture, and it's about getting the employee engaged. And you do that by creating some type of intimate environment. It's hard to do one-on-one, but you have to have a culture of reinforcing that we care. Again, it's a basic human thing. And if you care and you can show them we're developing them in different ways, giving them a voice. This generation really, really wants their voices to be heard. They're used to it from posting, from Facebook. You just said you posted on Facebook a poll. They're used to receiving that immediately. They want it in their workplace too. And if you can define a benefits or culture plan around that engagement, obviously, and it's nothing new, right? And nothing different than any of us want.
I just think if you think back to how training has been done in the past, many of us went through the week-long leadership program, and it felt kind of good during the week. But if you really think about it, once you came out of that program, you're back in your job, and you maybe have a couple of nuggets or a poster or a tchotchke on your desk to remind you. But they say that, and then I heard a lot. The last 5 years, I would just want to jump out of my chair at conferences around presentations people were giving around stereotypes of millennials and how they really like everything online. So just take all your training and put it online. And I thought, oh, yeah, I just fingers on the chalkboard.